If you can't sleep, it is probably not your phone's fault. It is probably not the caffeine. Your mattress is probably fine. So, what is it? Why can't you sleep? It's probably because you're trying too hard. Hey there, Jessica here. So, I'm a therapist in Austin, Texas, who specializes in sleep disorders. And I want to share what I think is the number one culprit in the inability to sleep. And it is often not what people think. So, watch this video to understand why all of your hard work to get sleep is not working. So, first idea that I want to talk about is that sleep is involuntary. So, sleep is an automatic and effortless process if the human can get out of the way. So, to illustrate this, I'll talk about how there are certain responses that humans have when they are trying not to have them. The blushing is a really great example. So, like, if have you ever been really embarrassed and tried really hard to like make it stop or like turn the blushing off? Well, you just get redder. You can't strong arm yourself into relaxing. The second you start bringing in effort, the second you're like, okay, relax, relax, damn it, relax, deep breath, everything's fine, you're fine. Well, now you're even more amped up. You're definitely not going to relax. And sleep. When you are trying like hell to sleep, you stay awake. Sleep does not reward you for effort. So, to illustrate this, I am going to make an attempt to share my screen. This is my first time doing this on a recording, so hopefully okay. And I'm also going to make this bigger. So, as you can see, we are very high tech over here. Okay, let me make sure that's in frame. All right, cool. So I wanted to talk about this model. So this is called it's a mouthful, the psychobiological inhibition, attention, intention, effort model. Mouthful. And I know it looks like just a bunch of crazy stuff is going on. But we'll kind of talk through each piece of it. So, under normal circumstances, sleep occurs passively. So, that is to say, without attention, without intention, and without effort. A stressful life event will impact your body and your mind. So, when it says stressful life event, psychological and physiological correlates of stress, that's all that's saying. You have a stressful life event, your body and your mind are going to be impacted. So when your body and your mind are under stress, then you tend to focus on the cause of the stress, which is over here with the selective attention towards stressors. And when you're focused on when you're stressed and you're focused on the cause of the stress, your sleep is disrupted. In other words, you have an inhibition of sleep-related de-arousal. My God, they worded that terribly. I feel like it changes directions multiple times. But what that's saying is for sleep to happen, there has to be a removal of energy from the system. So, absent that disengagement, you've got insomnia. You're not sleeping. Now, acute insomnia, which is like insomnia, like short term insomnia, that's not uncommon when people are stressed. And a lot of people find that their sleep does go back to normal once the stressor is resolved. So that's that recovery of normal sleep kind of offshoot thing you see over there. Or your acute insomnia turns into chronic insomnia. How does this happen? This happens through attention, intention, and effort. So now your focus has shifted from whatever the precipitating stressor was to your sleep. So at first it was, I'm not sleeping because I have a stressful project at work. I'm not sleeping because I owe a lot of money on my taxes. I'm not sleeping because I have a new baby and my baby's not sleeping. Well, now I'm just not sleeping and I don't really know why. So you may or may not be consciously aware that you are now giving sleep more attention than you did previously. So you'll see this thing that says explicit and implicit. Um, so implicit is you're not aware that you're paying attention to it. Explicit, you are aware that you're paying attention to it. So now you're paying more attention to your sleep, whether you are consciously aware that you're paying attention or not consciously aware. Well, here's the thing. Once you start paying attention to anything, once you start paying attention, it prevents a few different things. One of the things it prevents is the perceptual disengagement and behavioral unresponsiveness needed for sleep. So let me talk about, because I know these are like super clinical kind of medical sounding terms. So in other words, if you're going to fall asleep, you have to disengage. You have to disengage and you have to quit doing stuff. Behavioral unresponsiveness. You have to quit paying attention. You have to quit doing stuff. Well, if you're paying attention, that's not going to happen. Further, when you pay attention to something, that tends to prompt action. Like if humans are paying attention to something, we tend to think, oh, I need to do something about this. I need to take some kind of action in response to some need. So now you are making a purposeful attempt to sleep. That's intention. That's the intention, which of course is the opposite of disengagement. If I'm paying attention, I'm not disengaged. If I'm acting with intent, I'm not disengaged. And now the fact that I have this intent to fall asleep, that leads to me exerting effort, which you guessed it, effort, not disengaging. So this is how people end up going from, oh, I'm not sleeping because I was stressed out to I'm just not sleeping and I don't know why. It becomes its own problem. It starts to compound on itself. So that's that. I'm gonna take this down, but I think I'll link it down in the description below. Okay, cool. All right, so we're back to that. So I want to talk about, so I'm talking about this idea of sleep effort. And sleep effort can be anything. Anything you do to make yourself sleep. Anything you do with the purpose of falling asleep. That can become sleep effort if you are doing it with too much pressure, if there's too much of that attention, intention, and effort. Any tool in the toolbox can become sleep effort. Breathing, meditation, stretching, yoga, warm bath, sleepy time tea, like whatever thing it is you're doing to try to fall asleep. If you are doing it with too much pressure, too much stress, too much effort, then it is probably not going to work. It probably hasn't worked very well. So then this kind of leads to the question of, okay, so then how do good sleepers do it? What's their secret? What are they doing? You might think that they have some great skill or craft or some secret or something they figured out that they've spent years working on their sleep and perfecting it. No, hell no, not at all. They do nothing. They do nothing. They don't care. They don't try. They don't think about it. A lot of the time they don't even have good sleep hygiene. You know who has good sleep hygiene? People with insomnia. That's who has good sleep hygiene because they were told, do sleep hygiene. You can't sleep, fix your sleep hygiene. So of course they do it. They follow all the instructions. They do all the sleep hygiene. Doesn't work. But the people that you know in your life that are good sleepers, ask them what they do to sleep, and they're gonna be like, I just sleep. I don't know. I just like lay my head down and then I sleep. But you ask a person with insomnia what they do to sleep, and they're going to be like, well, I did this and I did this. I did yoga and then I stretched and then I did this and then I meditated and then I watched TV and I turned off the TV because the screens are bad. And they're going to have this whole list of things that they're doing. So I want to insert here that sleep hygiene. Actually, I'm going to define sleep hygiene. So sleep hygiene is about having a bedroom environment and daily habits that are conducive to sleep. So sleep hygiene, there's no one definitive list, but this is the stuff like reduce your caffeine intake, make sure your bedroom's comfortable and dark and quiet, exercise, like maybe in the early evening, take a hot shower. This is all about stuff like that. It's not a standalone treatment for insomnia. So sleep hygiene on its own, not going to fix your insomnia. Um, and a lot of people are actually kind of relieved when I say that. When I say, you know what, it was never going to work. It wasn't that you were doing it wrong. It wasn't that you're like irreparably broken. It was just never going to work. Sleep hygiene is preventive care. Think of sleep hygiene like brushing and flossing your teeth. It's good to brush and floss. Everybody needs to be brushing and flossing. But sleep hygiene, so I just realized I should probably look at the camera and not look at and not look at this. There's my face down here on the screen. So apologies for that. Um, let's see, where was I? So sleep hygiene is not a standalone treatment for insomnia. It's preventive care. But if you have insomnia, it's kind of like you have a cavity. And when you have a cavity, you need treatment. So you treat the cavity, and then your dentist will say, please continue to brush and floss to prevent future cavities. Similarly, when I'm working with somebody with insomnia, when we get their sleep looking a lot better, then I will say, let's introduce some sleep hygiene to try to keep you on track, because it is good preventive care. It's just not treatment. So the standard for insomnia is something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. I will link a card because I did a video, like an intro to CBTI. I'll link a card about that. So back to good sleepers. So how do good sleepers differ from people with insomnia? And there's a few important ways in which they're different. So one is good sleepers, whatever they do not do it deliberately or anxiously with the goal of inducing sleep. They are not trying to sleep. They are never trying to sleep. There is no effort. They are not preoccupied with sleep. They barely think about it. Again, if you ask them what they do to sleep, they say, I just slept. They don't do anything. And if they have a bad night, like we all do, it tends to just sort itself out because they're not preoccupied with it. So one of the things I also tell my insomnia clients is bad nights are coming. You're going to have bad nights. We all have bad nights. It happens from time to time. Totally normal. The most important thing is to not panic. Don't panic, and don't do a bunch of stuff trying to make up for it. So don't try to compensate for a bad night by going to bed early the following night, or lingering in bed, or taking a nap. That's not what good sleepers do. Good sleepers like, well, I didn't sleep that well last night. That sucks. Okay, maybe I'll sleep better tonight. And that's about the extent of how much of their energy is devoted to that. So if you are enjoying this so far, if you're finding it useful, please make sure to subscribe. I try to put out about two videos a month. I do a lot of sleep content. I have a lot of stuff about my other specialties, but sleep is really my main interest. So next question or point that I'd like to make is, are you doing sleep effort? And so I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. Okay. So we're going to scroll past this guy. So I want you to look at this questionnaire that's on the screen. Hopefully. Okay. Yeah, it looks like you should be able to see it. Okay. So I always like to ask people to look at this questionnaire and to look at it from two perspectives: their own, and then somebody that they know who is a good sleeper. And so I'll first say, how would you, just right now, today, in this moment, how would you answer these questions? And if you find yourself going down this list and saying very much to a lot of these, or to some extent to a lot of these, if you're skewed more toward that side of it, that is sleep effort. So you want to know what sleep effort is? It's this. It's putting too much effort into sleeping. It's wanting to control it. It's putting off going to bed at night because you're scared you won't go to sleep. It's worry about sleeping if you can't sleep. It's thinking that you are no good at it. It's getting anxious before you go to bed because you have performance anxiety about sleep. It's worrying about the consequences of not sleeping. That is sleep effort. And this stuff will 1,000,000% keep you from getting sleep. Then I ask people to think about a good sleeper. Maybe it's their spouse, maybe it's a friend of theirs, somebody that they know that's a good sleeper, and how they think that good sleeper would answer these questions. And typically they look at it and they're like, not at all. Not at all for number two. Not at all. It's all not at all. So their friend, spouse, whoever that's a good sleeper, they don't put effort into it. They don't feel that they should be able to control it. They don't worry about it. They don't get anxious about it. They don't worry about the conflict. There really is something to that. So if you find yourself saying very much to a lot of these questions, that's sleep effort. And obviously, I don't know you, but I can 1,000,000% guarantee you this is getting in the way of your sleep if you're saying very much to a lot of these questions. Okay, we're going to stop the share. I think that's the last screen share that I've got for this video. I'll pop in just real quick and say that I send a monthly newsletter. It comes out about the middle of the month every month. And I write content. It's related to all of my specialties. I would say sleep is kind of my predominant specialty, but I also like to write a lot of stuff about chronic pain, OCD, PTSD, and then something called radically open DBT, which you may or may not have heard of, but I've made a couple of videos about that as well. I'm actually going to be linking a card to one of them coming up when I get to that point in the presentation. I guess this is a presentation. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about. We could rename insomnia sleep effort syndrome. We could rename it that and it would still be accurate. Because here's what's probably happening for you if you have insomnia, if you're doing sleep effort. So you put a lot of effort into your sleep and you wish you could control it. And then fear builds up as bedtime approaches. A lot of people will say as the night as the evening kind of wears on and it's getting closer to bedtime, they're starting to feel more and more and more anxious. And because they have performance anxiety about sleeping. Am I going to sleep tonight? What if I don't sleep tonight? What do I do? How do I fix this? The next step, so you put a lot of effort, you wish you could control it, the fear builds up, and then you just have like off the charts worry and anxiety about sleep and about the consequences, about what is it going to be like tomorrow? Am I going to be able to function? Am I going to be able to think clearly? Am I going to be able to perform at work or take care of my kids or drive my car or whatever it is? So the problem here is that sleep it's not a thing you do. It's really not a thing you do. It's not an active thing. It's about not doing so you can sleep. It's about removing energy from the system. So I think that last point, or maybe second to last point that I want to make is this question of, can you have too much of a good thing? And I'm going to link a card. I did a video kind of exploring that concept. And that's the video that's also the radically open DBT that I referenced just a minute ago. That's the topic for that video. So, but I want to give some examples that don't have anything to do with sleep. So, like in an immune system. So if you boost your you hear people talking about, oh, I want to boost my immune system. Well, if you boost your immune system too much, you have an autoimmune disorder. Like that's an example of an immune system that is too good. It works too well. It's too much of a good thing. There's a medical diagnosis called congenital insensitivity to pain and anhidrosis. So this is no capacity whatsoever to feel pain, no capacity whatsoever to sweat. It's something it's congenital. People are born with it. And again, that might sound great. Oh my gosh, no pain, to never feel pain. That sounds fantastic, to never feel pain. Well, people with this diagnosis have an average life expectancy of about 25 years. They don't live that long because it turns out pain is actually really important. And pain is how we keep ourselves from getting injured, or we keep ourselves from getting further injured. So you don't want to have too much immune system. You don't want to have not enough pain. You don't want to have no pain. And then the last example I'll give is that people with what are called restricting eating disorders. So, like anorexia nervosa is an example of a restricting eating disorder. People with anorexia nervosa, for the most part, tend to be highly intelligent, high achieving, conscientious people. They're people who made straight A's in school. They're people who are like star employees. Because here's the thing, it actually takes a lot of fortitude to maintain an eating disorder. It takes a lot of fortitude to get through college and to be successful and do things well. It also takes a lot of fortitude, like the same stuff that allows people to like finish a degree. If you're going to finish a degree, then you really need to kind of be able to like suffer for several years and not see the payoff, like delaying gratification. Well, people that can do that, those are the same people that are also really good at maintaining a strict eating disorder. So again, too much of a good thing. Most of my insomnia clients are professionally successful. I don't think that's an accident. Because with most things in life, like you work hard to achieve things. You set a goal, you doggedly pursue it, you don't give up. Typically, that's how to be successful in most endeavors. Not in sleep. Not in sleep. I mean, if you approach sleep the way you've approached your career or your school or whatever it is, you set the goal, you doggedly pursue it, you don't give up. That's the worst. That's the worst thing in the world you could do. As soon as you start trying too hard, you are losing the battle. So my approach with the clients that I work with, and my suggestion to you, is that you try to abandon your attempts to overpower the insomnia. We're not going to defeat it. We're not going to win or do battle with it. You are going to abandon your attempts to overcome it. And you're going to try to let sleep come find you in its own way, in its own time. And I like to share, there's an example here that I like to share. So there was a series on Hulu a few years ago called The Dropout. It was about Elizabeth Holmes. But it was very good. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. Amanda Seyfried is fantastic in it. But Elizabeth Holmes, for those of you guys who don't know who she is, she was this lady, the Silicon Valley. She had like a health startup, and she was doing a bunch of fraud. She was doing a bunch of fraud with it. And there was this journalist who was like, I know she's doing fraud. I know she's doing this stuff, but he just couldn't seem to like catch her in the act, or like he was like, I know it's there, I just can't find it. So his supervisor tells him a story about fishermen in Sicily, and about how these Sicilian fishermen will go out into the water and they just stand there. And they just stand there. They just stand there and they wait, because they know if they stand there long enough, fish are going to start just swarming all around them. If they were to just go out and start pursuing the fish are going to swim away. They're not going to catch very much fish. But if they stand there and they just wait it out, eventually the fish, I think what happens is the fish are like, oh, this thing isn't moving. It must not be a threat. I'm going to go swim around it. And then boom, they catch all their fish. So sleep is like that. Sleep is like those fish in that story that I just told. So anything you can do to reduce the pressure, reduce the performance anxiety, lower the stakes of not sleeping, anything we can do to take energy out of the system. So that's it for the video today. I do recommend watching next my 5 tips for better sleep video. It should be linked. I'll either link a card or I'll have it drop in at the end. It's a brief overview of something called stimulus control, which is part of CBT for insomnia. And it's effective for insomnia even just by itself. So there might be some stuff in there that you could go ahead and start implementing. If you're located in the state of Texas, and you're interested in becoming a sleep client of me, working with me to improve your sleep, you can go to my website. I'll link that down below. If you're not in Texas, but you would like to find somebody that can help you with your sleep, maybe somebody who has similar training to what I do, I will also link a directory down below where you can go on and find somebody that's closer to you. And wherever you're located, Texas, not Texas, wherever, I hope this was useful. So feel free to drop a comment below if it was, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.